Is Salem LGBTQ plus friendly? What are the political vibes? What about the cost of living and the homelessness? Is Salem even safe? And can your dog live its best life here? These are the questions that we are going to answer today from a recent Reddit post online. Salem isn't the right place for everyone, so let's go over to this Reddit post and figure out if Salem is the right or wrong place for you. My name is Clarity Odd, and I'm an active real estate agent who focuses on helping buyers relocate to Oregon. If you are ready to start planning your relocation to Oregon, book a one-on-one consultation with me by using the links down in the description or scan this QR code here. Okie dokie. Let's jump right in. Some random person on the internet recently posted a fantastic question to Reddit. Pause here to read the whole entire thing because I'm going to go over just the highlights of this person's question since it's a pretty long one. This person asked, "For anyone living in or familiar with Salem, we'd love your insights on LGBTQ plus life and community, political vibes, cost of living, homelessness, safety and crime, dog-friendly spaces, and the quality of life." There are a lot of great topics in this person's question, so we are just going to take it bullet point by bullet point and break down the main categories in this person's online post. Let's get into the answers and what other people on the internet replied to this person's initial post. The first topic and category that we are going to go over is LGBTQ plus life and community. This first Reddit reply says, "We moved here 2 years ago from Phoenix with my 23-year-old queer kid and their 25-year-old trans partner. We live close to downtown and Willamette University. We feel very safe here, and the safety of our queer kids was the biggest reason to move, as Arizona was starting to pass a lot of anti-trans and queer laws. We picked Salem for a lot of reasons, including it being listed as the most inclusive city in Oregon." This first comment spoke about this person's experience moving from Phoenix, Arizona to Salem to ensure the safety of their queer kid and their trans partner. And I am not at all shocked by what this person said. From my own experience with my clients from YouTube, there are a lot of people who are starting to decide to relocate to Oregon, and more specifically Salem, because they are looking for a community that is different from places like Arizona. This commenter also mentioned that they feel safe here. This is huge, especially against the backdrop of the world that we live in today, where so many folks across the US do not feel safe. Now, this isn't to say that Salem is perfect by any means. We have issues, but I do believe that more and more people will be looking towards Salem as an alternative place to live in Oregon that is not Portland. If you are wanting to go out and about and go to gay bars and events, Salem does have LGBTQ plus community events throughout the entire year, like the Pride Festival, but I would say that it really doesn't compare to what Portland can offer. There are a lot of fun gay bars in Portland that are really unique and have such a distinct vibe. And remember, the best part is you are only 45 minutes away from Portland, which means that you are going to have quick and easy access to those big city vibes, but you can live in a cheaper and more relaxed city. While I do not identify as LGBTQ+, I am certainly an ally, and I want you to know that in the past year, a fourth of my clients who came to me from YouTube identified as LGBTQ+. The reason that I bring this up is because I want you to know that people are truly relocating here to Salem who are looking for a different style of life, and Salem is popping up on a lot of people's radars who are part of the LGBTQ+ community. This whole Reddit thread and my own experience with my clients, that's not fluff. These are real people who are looking towards Salem and deciding that they want to move. This is a great topic, so let's pull up another person's comment about the LGBTQ+ community here in Salem. This person says, "As a conservative in Salem, I'd like to chime in. You are most welcome here. You would be a valued member of our community regardless of who you choose to love. Salem is pretty mixed in terms of its political demographic, but I have yet to meet any conservative who wouldn't treat you very kindly openly and respectfully. The politics you see on TV doesn't translate to real life. I have LGBTQ plus neighbors who me and my family adore. We have LGBTQ plus friendly churches who would also welcome you with open arms if that's your thing. I know I'm only touching on the political part of your question, but my point is that even though Salem is a mix of political beliefs, you have nothing to fear from conservatives. We want you to thrive and live your life to the fullest in whatever manner works for you. Yes, there are people on the extreme right who are full of hate, but at least in the area that I live, they are few and far between. They certainly don't represent our values, and we will certainly come to your defense and aid if you ever felt threatened by one of them. This commenter said that they're conservative in Salem. Now, we are going to get to the topic of politics later on in this video, but I want to focus on one specific point that this person said. They say, we have LGBTQ plus friendly churches who would welcome you with open arms if that is your thing. It is certainly true that we have LGBTQ plus churches here in Salem. Going to church is personally not my jam, but if it is yours, fantastic. Do know that you are going to be welcomed here and you are going to have plenty of churches to choose from. And although I am not a church-going girly, I have never felt like church has been imposed on me here in Salem, or that like people look at me differently because I don't go to church. So whatever side you fall on in terms of your church going status, you will be welcomed here at so many different churches. This commenter also says, you have nothing to fear from conservatives. We want you to thrive and live your life to the fullest, in whatever manner that works for you. While I can appreciate this person's kind sentiment and gesture to offer their support, to say that the LGBTQ plus community has nothing to fear from conservatives feels like a slap in the face due to the recent election. But we need to remember that this person is specifically talking about their lived experience in Salem and their personal outlook. It's hard not to get upset at this. It is paramount that if you are moving to Salem, you feel safe and comfortable. And I want to ask that when we are done with this video, please go check out that Reddit post so you can read everything that everyone posted and read multiple perspectives and hear different experiences that are shared online. It's hard not to get heated in this. So we're just going to move on. The next topic we are going to go over is political vibe. I am just hitting all of the hot button issues today. So the first commenter says, queer who moved here from a red state in May. People who say Salem is split politically do not actually know what it is like living in a properly conservative area, and it is blaringly obvious. It's not Portland, but that's a good thing. It also means it doesn't have the bad things that come with big cities. This commenter says that they are a queer who moved here from a red state, and that they feel Salem is split politically, but for those who are coming from a red state, they will feel like Salem is far more liberal in comparison. I've never lived in a red state, so I'm gonna have to take this person's word for it. But I do agree that Salem feels like a very purple city in a blue state. When you drive around Salem, you're gonna see political views of all kinds. And occasionally you will see people driving through town with their big ass trucks and waving flags everywhere. That is not the norm, but I can also say that I'm not totally shocked when that happens. As with many cities in Oregon, and more specifically the Willamette Valley where Salem is located, the city centers tend to be more liberal. When you go out to more rural countryside settings, it shifts and it becomes a little bit more conservative. Now, that's not to say that your political view has to be one way or the other for you to feel comfortable in these spaces. It's just a pattern that you are gonna notice when you start driving through these Oregon cities. This person also mentions that Salem is not Portland and that is a good thing. And I totally agree with that. Portland is very progressive and outspoken, and it is a completely different vibe than Salem. So when you come and visit Salem, do not expect that it will be like Portland and have that same heavy progressive vibe. Now look, I'm a girly who came from Portland. I was born and raised in a very progressive household, but I will tell you that I am very comfortable here in Salem, and I don't feel like my beliefs have ever been accosted or challenged or called out in a negative manner. Okay, let's move on to another comment. This person says, I think Salem fits the bill for most of the things you laid out. Salem is not uniformly liberal, but I would definitely say the vibe here is live and let live for the most part. There's definitely support for LGBTQ plus folks, even if it doesn't exactly lead with it like it does in Portland or Eugene. Now, this is just echoing kind of what we've already been talking about, but this is a stance that I have on Salem, and I think a lot of people do as well. It is very live and let live here, but it is not nearly as progressive like Portland or Eugene. It just feels very middle of the road kind of a space, and that could be good or bad, just depending on what you are looking for. All right, let's move away from the topic of politics. Gets us all heated, I know. And let's take a breather and move on to the cost of living, which arguably could be just as hot button of an issue. I'm just putting you guys through the ringer today. Whew. All right, this first person says, the cost of living is slightly higher than the national average on paper. I just bought a house this year and I make $20,000 more than you do a year. Food and goods tend to be a little bit more expensive, and gas is a little bit more expensive than you may be used to, but it's not going to be the highest. There is also no sales tax, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. So this person mentions that they make $20,000 more than the original poster. So that brings their grand total income to about $80,000 per year. This person also mentions that they purchased a house this year on at least that $80,000 income, depending of course if they live with other people or if they have a partner. But what I want to focus on is that there is a huge draw for a lot of people to move to Salem because it is more affordable to live here when you compare it to similar locations like Portland and Eugene. So for those who are looking to move into Oregon, but the price tag of real estate in some of these other Oregon cities might just feel like too much, Salem can offer you a really great alternative. And generally speaking, you are going to find that the cost of real estate in Salem is going to be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 cheaper than places like Portland and Eugene. Currently, the median home sales price in Salem is at $426,000. Right now in Portland, the median home sales price is at $546,000. And if we look at Eugene, we can see that the median home sales price is at $501,000. But what do these numbers actually mean? I can tell you right off the bat that for $426,000, you can expect to get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Salem, but it is typically going to need some cosmetic updating of some kind. Likely this house is going to be anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 square feet, and more likely than not, the kitchen and the bathrooms, they are definitely going to need some updating. If you want to get that same house in Portland, you can expect to pay $546,000. And if you want to get that same house in Eugene, you can expect to pay closer to $500,000. Now, the real estate market is always evolving and changing, but this is just a great way to set a baseline understanding about how much further your budget can go in a place like Salem when you compare it to some other places that are popular in the Willamette Valley. So if you like the idea of moving to Oregon and you're specifically looking for a city to move into that is more affordable, Salem needs to stay on your list of places that potentially will work for you. Salem is consistently more affordable than many places in Oregon, but that's not to say that Salem is cheap, because $426,000 is still a lot depending on where you are relocating from. But it is a whole heck of a lot cheaper than a lot of other places in Oregon. This commenter also says that there is no sales tax. And yes, this is absolutely true. And this is no matter where you are in Oregon, you will not have sales tax. So what you see on the price tag is exactly what you are gonna pay. Now, while that sounds really great on paper, we do need to consider the fact that we have progressive income tax here in Oregon. And this is gonna be totally personal to you based on your income. But depending on how much you make, you will be taxed accordingly. If you make more money, you will be taxed more. Talk to your CPA about this, because if you are coming from a state that does not have income tax, this can be a large adjustment depending on how much your income is. All right. Enough about the cost of living. Let's move on to the topic of homelessness. This first commenter says, homelessness is a hot button issue here, and you will notice it. It's really more of a problem in certain areas of the city than others, such as downtown, and property crime has increased because of it. Personally, the biggest issue for me is just the amount of trash and discarded items thrown around in the gutters and the sidewalk. The homelessness is something you learn to live with and won't be something that is going to impact you daily unless you choose to let it. Oregon, as a whole, has a homelessness crisis. This is going to be visible to you no matter where you are buying a house and moving to in Oregon, and Salem is not exempt. We have a homelessness crisis in the city of Salem, and this commenter mentions that it's really more of a problem in certain areas of the city than others, such as the downtown area. Now, most of our social services and buildings are on the northern side of downtown Salem, so you do typically tend to see tents and people camping and homelessness in that area of downtown because, again, that's where our social services are located. When you are downtown hanging around, you are likely going to see signs of the homelessness crisis. And this is an issue that we have faced here in Oregon for many, many years. And I grew up in Portland where the homelessness crisis was very prevalent. So from my perspective, I actually think that Salem does a far better job of navigating the homelessness crisis than the city of Portland ever has. If you are coming from a bigger city where you have a homelessness crisis as well, you are probably going to get to Salem and feel like there's not that bad of a homelessness crisis. And that's because this is just relative based on where you are coming from and what you are comparing it to. Now, this is a very complex issue, and while I think Salem does an okay job in navigating it, there is room for improvement, and my hope is that throughout the years, we really can improve social services that our city offers and help those who need assistance. Okay, next topic is crime and safety. Let me start off by telling you that crime maps are going to be your best friend in determining if Salem is going to be a safe place for you or not, because this topic of safety is so dang subjective that it's really going to depend on where you're coming from and what your expectations are. But let's jump into what this first commenter has to say about safety. Salem is typically a safe place to live, but again, this is based on what part of Salem you live in. Northeast and central Lancaster area is probably somewhere you should avoid, as much of the violent crimes occur there. I see a lot of people talking about property crimes in South Salem, but that seems to be where the nicer homes are, where the nice stuff is to steal. So that makes sense. All right, so this person mentions that Salem is typically a safe place to live, in their own words, not mine, but this is going to be based on what part of Salem you are in. So like any city, there's going to be areas that you personally don't feel drawn to. I first started my relocation journey in Northeast Salem, and I don't believe that I would feel comfortable walking around in my previous Northeast neighborhood without my husband. Where I live now in South Salem, I feel so comfortable walking around by myself, with my dog, with my husband, just frolicking out and about in my neighborhood, looking for all the wild turkeys. So fucking cute. This person also mentions that they see a lot of people talking about property crimes in South Salem, but that seems to be where the nicer homes are, where the nicer stuff is to steal, so it makes sense. I live in South Salem and I've never had any issues with property crime, but my experience is not the totality of South Salem experience. And I should probably knock on wood now just to make sure that nothing happens to my house. Let's read one more person's perspective about safety and crime in Salem. This person says, as far as crime and safety, historically, most of the crime here is property crimes, which is higher than the national average. It has been falling though, while violent crimes has gone up some over the years and is right about the national average. I would caution just looking at the rates though and looking into the details. Most property crimes here involve automobiles and petty theft, and most violent crimes occur between people who know each other. This isn't a town where you would be unsafe walking around and exploring, even at night. As with any city, there are some safer areas than others. Now this person brings up a very good point. That data is only going to get you so far, but really sifting through the data and getting multiple perspectives and testimonies is going to be very helpful to you. They mentioned that this isn't a town where you would feel unsafe walking around and exploring even at night. And I am just gonna say that this is probably a man who wrote this comment comment, because us ladies know that you could be in the safest place in the world, and if somebody's walking behind you, you are immediately going to have your guard up. But I digress. Overall, yes, there are a lot of places around town that I would go walk around at night by myself. There are certainly areas that I would never go, even in the daytime. And like this person mentioned in the last part of their comment, they said, as with any city, there are some safer areas than others. If you can afford yourself the ability to come scout Salem out and walk around the town, check out different neighborhoods, this is going to give you a great idea about the city. And I think it will go a long way in clarifying this point for you based on your own levels of safety and comfort. This is such a subjective topic depending on where you are coming from and your expectations. Salem is a city with just about 200,000 people, so there's a lot going on in a lot of different neighborhoods and different vibes to check out. But at the end of the day, you have to decide where you feel comfortable with in Salem. Let's lighten the damn mood a little bit, because this was a really just, again, stressful video. Let's move on and talk about our fur babies. Most of my clients have dogs, and I myself have a dog, and I'm going to tell you that without a doubt, 100% Salem is fantastic for doggies. But don't just take my word for it. Let's read some random internet person's thoughts as well. This person says, there is a pretty huge dog park at Minto Brown and small parks scattered throughout the city. The nice thing about Salem is that you're a very short drive away from a bunch of really nice open spaces. Look up areas like Basket Slough, Willamette Mission, Kaiser Rapids, Silver Falls, Ankeny National Refuge to get the vibe. One of the best places to go with your doggo is Minto Brown Park. It is a massive park just on the other side of downtown Salem and has a huge off-leash dog area which is open year-round. Do be mindful, this is not a fenced dog park. It is just open to all of the doggies. So if you have a dog that's a little bit anxious, you might want to actually take them on a walk in Minto Brown, which great for you because there are so many walking paths in Minto Brown as well. And what I personally love about these walking trails is that 90% of them are paved with cement, which means that if you have a dog who is basically a mop in the wintertime, like I do, then you are going to love the fact that you can walk your doggy on these paved trails and avoid getting them muddy. Minto Brown is just a huge highlight for so many people because it has a little bit of something for everyone. You are going to see that it has some little swampy areas, which are really great for bird watching. And I mean, they say that they have turtles there too, but I've never seen the turtles there. If you're really adventurous, you can go pick berries at Minto in the summertime. And overall, it is just a huge highlight for dog owners to have such a great park in our backyard. I take my dog Buddy walking in Minto Brown at least 3 times a week. And I love the fact that no matter what trail I go on, I am comfortable walking my doggy there. But do be mindful that in most parts of this park, it doesn't have street lights. So in the wintertime, when it gets dark at like 4:30 p.m. on the shortest day of the year, the park is going to be very, very dark and kind of spooky. Beyond Minto Brown Park, each neighborhood in Salem is typically going to have some type of park for your dog. And like this commenter mentioned, there are so many places surrounding Salem that offer outdoor experiences, not just for you, but also for your doggy. You can take your dog basically anywhere in Salem so long as they're on a leash. And of course, don't be like taking your dog into restaurants or anything like that. That's kind of gross. But for your outdoor experiences, your dog can come with you in almost any circumstance. Let's go over the quality of life here in Salem. This first comment says, there are lots of great people. The downtown area has some wonderful restaurants and a lot of cute and quirky shops/businesses. The Pacific Northwest in general has a reputation for being a hard place to make new friends. I think there's some truth in that, and there are a number of sociological factors there. But there are good folks. I've made a number of good friends in Salem thanks to my extrovert wife who is native to the area. Shopping-wise, Salem has everything you need to live, but not as many choices as you'd find in a bigger city. This extends not just to shopping, but if you are a homeowner, you have fewer options for different kinds of maintenance here than in Portland. For example, you might find worse service/poor booking scheduling and higher prices for stuff than more populated areas. This person mentions that the Pacific Northwest is where Salem is located, which It's known for being hard to make new friends here. And this was actually my experience when I first relocated to Salem about 6 years ago. I found that it was incredibly difficult to make friends here in Salem. And I attributed that to this level of clickiness and the fact that so many people are born and raised in Salem that everyone just grows up with each other, and those friendships just continue into adulthood. So coming into a space where the relationships and the social circles are already solidified, I felt like it was really hard to connect with people. But this is also true for the greater area of the Pacific Northwest. We are a bit standoffish at first and hard to get to know, but I do think that we are generally pretty friendly. This person also mentions that in terms of shopping, Salem has everything that you are going to need to live, but not as many choices as what you would find in a bigger city. And this is absolutely true. Here in Salem, we've got a Costco, we've got a Trader Joe's, Ulta, Target, all of the big box stores. But personally, when I want some really good retail therapy and good shopping, I go up to Portland because that's where all the good shops are. But yes, your day-to-day needs will be taken care of here in Salem, and we even have a really great little co-op called Life Source in South Salem if you are looking for more of a co-op-y vibe. This person also mentions that if you are a homeowner, you are going to have fewer options for different kinds of maintenance and repair people in Salem. They also mention that you might find the service is lacking here and the booking and scheduling is more complex and the prices are higher. And I cannot stress how accurate this is. It is incredibly hard to find good contractors and service people out here in Salem. So when you find them, you covet them. And this is even true with my own real estate business. I have a handful of service people that I just love and use, and I let my clients use them too, right? Because that's why you're hiring me for my, well, part of it, for my connections. But my point is, I do not share those people easily because they are so good, and it was so hard and difficult to find the right people to get the job done without charging an arm and a leg. Most of my YouTube clients do expect that Salem is smaller and you can get all of your daily needs met. There are just enough people in Salem to make it feel like there's stuff going on, but if you are expecting Salem to be similar to Portland, where you have that big city vibe and energy, you are not going to find that here in Salem. Overall, I think the quality of life here in Salem from my own perspective is pretty darn high, but when I first relocated here and started my journey in Northeast Salem, I didn't like my quality of life at all. It was pretty abysmal. And honestly, I didn't enjoy my first few years here in Salem. It was only after my husband and I moved to South Salem that my quality of life really increased. And that's partly because in Northeast Salem, it felt like I was living out in the burbs, which really just is not my cup of tea. And it would take me so long to get everywhere, to my favorite grocery store, to go places for work. But once we moved to South Salem, it was like, oh my God, a whole different version of Salem. I did link this Reddit thread in the description of this video, which I highly recommend checking out because there are so many good answers in that thread. And this person who initially asked the question, like, they just nailed it. This was a great question. If you have further questions about what the heck it's like to live in Salem, write those down in the comments so I can reply to you. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna wanna watch this one next. Bye, friends.